Walk around a Disney park today and you'll see something nobody quite expected. Not families, not children dragging their parents toward the next ride. Instead, you'll see grown adults, 20-year-olds riding mobility scooters because their legs supposedly can't carry them, crying in the middle of the street at a cartoon character, eating 5 desserts before noon, documenting every single second of it on TikTok. Childless adults now outnumber families at these parks. Some visit hundreds of times a year. Some quit their jobs, pack their lives into boxes and relocate to Orlando just to go every single day. And you might laugh at first, you might write it off as some weird niche internet subculture, but the moment you start pulling at the thread, something much darker starts to unravel. Because Disney isn't just a theme park company, it's an empire. And these people aren't just fans, they're subjects. Disney has consumed some of the most beloved franchises in modern culture: Star Wars, Marvel, Pixar, The Simpsons, Indiana Jones. It's swallowed media giants like 20th Century Fox, ABC, ESPN, National Geographic, and Hulu, all of it absorbed into one single corporate ecosystem. They operate 12 theme parks worldwide, a fleet of cruise ships, and an entire planned residential community in Florida. Their combined properties attract over 150 million visitors every year, more than any other attraction on the planet, and it's not even close. Even if you think you've never engaged with Disney, you probably went a day without encountering something they own. The show your kids watched this morning, the film you streamed last night, the merchandise in the shop window, the ad that interrupted your YouTube video. Disney is everywhere. And like every empire in history, it has its castles. More importantly, it has its subjects. And the most valuable thing Disney owns can't be found anywhere on their balance sheet. It's the loyalty of millions of adults who don't just enjoy the brand, they've handed their entire identity over to it. The overwhelming majority of Disney adults are white, college-educated, middle-class North Americans. Many spend up to $10,000 a year on Disney alone. Some spend considerably more. People on camera casually admitting they've dropped $35,000 in a single year. Others burning through $1,000 in a single day at the parks without doing anything particularly extravagant. A Disney cruise costs more than a month traveling Southeast Asia, and yet for most of these people, it's the only holiday they ever take. Think about what that actually means. These are adults with real money and real freedom, people who could book a flight to Tokyo, hike through Patagonia, spend a week completely off the grid somewhere that might genuinely change how they see the world. Instead, they come back to the same place, the same rides, the same gift shops, year after year. Not because they've considered their options, because nothing else even crosses their mind. Some go so far into debt chasing the Disney lifestyle that their finances collapse around them. Pass purchases worth thousands, merchandise they can't afford, trips that go on credit cards that never quite get paid off. And then there's the more extreme end, people who don't just visit regularly but restructure their entire lives around proximity to the parks. One man, Jeff Wrights, started visiting Disney World every single day in 2012 and has racked up nearly 3,000 visits since. Disney adults naturally gravitate toward each other, dating through dedicated apps built specifically for people who need a partner who understands why this matters so much. They get married in front of the castle. They exchange vows inside the haunted mansion. They honeymoon on Disney cruises. And if you think that's where it peaks, you haven't heard of Golden Oak. Golden Oak is the boss level of Disney commitment. It's a gated residential community built inside Disney World itself, where mansions start at around $10 million. These aren't just homes near the park, they are homes built to Disney specification, with character statues in the gardens, Disney paintings on the walls, floors, and ceilings. People live, sleep, raise families, and grow old inside the physical borders of a theme park. So now you have homes, holidays, and relationships all constructed within the same corporate universe. The only thing left to hand over is identity itself. And Disney has that covered too.
The parks don't allow adults to wear full costumes. That's officially reserved for children. So Disney adults developed Disney bounding, a practice of dressing to evoke a specific character without technically breaking the costume rule. The word itself is telling. Bound for Disney, yes, but also bound by it. A soft cage with no visible bars, where individual identity gets quietly swapped out for a character someone else designed, manufactured, and sold to you. And then there's the ritual that genuinely disturbed the employees who eventually came forward about it. Disneyland has become one of the most popular places on Earth to scatter the ashes of the dead. Employees have spoken openly about being required to vacuum up human remains on a near monthly basis. One custodian described the haunted mansion as containing so much ash it wasn't even funny anymore. Disney even developed a special internal code word, HEPA, to discreetly alert staff that remains needed to be cleaned up again. While that image might strike most people as deeply morbid, for the people whose ashes end up there, it's apparently a fitting conclusion to a life lived entirely inside the Disney universe. Birth, childhood, dating, marriage, career, retirement, death. Every single chapter funneled through the same corporation. The psychoanalyst Erich Fromm had a name for this kind of behavior. He called it automaton conformity, the psychological mechanism through which people escape the anxiety of genuine freedom by adopting pre-packaged identities. You don't have to figure out who you are if someone has already done that work for you. You don't have to face the paralysis of real choice if the choices have already been made and packaged and placed in front of you with a bow on top. Disney offers exactly that, a complete identity, off the shelf. Your aesthetic, your community, your values, your sense of belonging, all of it handed to you in a gift shop bag. And Disney engineered the physical environment specifically to make sure that feeling sticks. The parks use patented scent cannons hidden inside walls and vents, firing specific fragrances at guests hundreds of times a day. The olfactory system connects directly to the brain regions responsible for emotion and memory, which is exactly why Disney invested heavily in scent engineering long before most companies even thought about it. There are over 30,000 unique paint colors across the parks, including a specific shade called Go Away Green, designed to render infrastructure invisible to the human eye. The music in the morning is fast-paced and exciting. By evening, it slows deliberately to make you linger near the shops. None of this is accidental. Every single detail of the environment has been engineered to deepen emotional attachment and extend the time you spend inside it spending money. Now here's where the machinery really starts to show, because all of this, the parks, the rituals, the identity absorption, runs on a single fuel: nostalgia. And nostalgia is more powerful and more dangerous than most people ever stop to consider. The word itself comes from two ancient Greek roots: nostos, meaning to return home, algos, meaning pain. It was first coined as a medical diagnosis in the 17th century to describe the crippling homesickness experienced by Swiss soldiers fighting far from their homeland, men who became physically ill from the longing. Nostalgia isn't happiness. It's closer to grief, a yearning for something you once had or believe you once had that can never fully be recovered. And that's precisely what makes it so commercially useful. If the feeling were ever truly satisfied, you'd experience it once and move on. But nostalgia never delivers what it promises. It pulls you back again and again, always just out of reach. Disney adults are suspended inside that cycle permanently. Disney didn't invent nostalgia, but they were the first company to truly understand it as an unresolved human need and to position themselves as the answer to it. The ground floor for this was childhood. That's where the deepest emotional connections are formed, where the brain is most impressionable, where a story or a song or a color can embed itself so deeply it never fully leaves. Disney invested serious resources into understanding exactly how children form emotional bonds, psychological research into emotional drivers, symbol interpretation, the difference between what feels authentic versus manufactured. They use those findings to calibrate their films with specific color palettes, particular music intervals, and narrative structures precisely tuned to create maximum emotional resonance in developing brains. We tend to associate that kind of psychological engineering with big tech. Disney was doing it decades earlier.
Walt Disney himself explained the strategy with unusual honesty. When asked whether his films were made for children, he said plainly that you have to appeal to the adult, because adults have the money and children don't. So they needed to solve adulthood. And an early Disney film gave them the perfect blueprint: Peter Pan. The solution was simple: stop people from growing up. Disney later formalized this into a strategy they called age decompression, the deliberate softening of the psychological transition between childhood and adulthood, designed to keep adult consumers emotionally tethered to the products and experiences they associated with being young and safe. And it worked, because adulthood is genuinely hard. Bills, rent, stress, the slow collapse of friendships, relationships that don't go the way you planned, jobs that drain more than they give. The real world doesn't burst into song. Strangers don't smile at you on the street. Nobody tells you that you're a chosen one waiting to be discovered. Disney spent your entire childhood telling you exactly that, and then the actual world arrived and the contrast was brutal. So when something offers to take you back to where things were warm and simple and safe and full of color, of course people reach for it. The problem is when that reaching becomes permanent, when the occasional escape becomes the only mode of existence, when the cave stops feeling like a retreat and starts feeling like home. Plato described this exact trap thousands of years ago. Prisoners chained inside a cave, watching shadows flicker on the wall, having never seen the outside world. To them, the shadows are reality. The important part of the allegory is what happens when one prisoner finally gets dragged into the sunlight. It's blinding, it's overwhelming. Everything is unfamiliar and difficult and too much at once. That's what a real adventure feels like at the start. A new city, a new job, a new school, stepping off a plane somewhere completely unknown, uncomfortable by design. But that discomfort is where life actually happens. Disney manufactured a fake version of adventure so emotionally optimized, so perfectly calibrated, that for the most committed followers, the real world simply cannot compete. The cave doesn't feel like a cage. That's the entire point. You can't miss a sunset you've never seen. And here's where the story stops being about Disney adults and starts being about all of us. Because the strategy Disney pioneered over 100 years, keep it simple, keep it rewarding, reduce friction, make the familiar feel like enough, is now the operating model of every major platform on the planet. Social media, streaming services, generative AI. Every app on your phone built around the same core principle. Don't make them think too hard, don't make them wait, don't make them uncomfortable, and keep them coming back. Disney just got there first. Meanwhile, the content itself has been rotting from the inside. Star Wars spent 2 films building up Snoke as a villain, then killed him off with zero explanation and papered over it with "somehow Palpatine returned," a line so lazy it became a meme before the credits finished rolling. Snow White cost hundreds of millions, starred a lead who publicly called the original story weird, gutted the romance, replaced the dwarves with CGI, and bombed so completely that even the CEO of Disney eventually came out and admitted the company had been prioritizing messaging over storytelling. When the person running the company says that out loud, the damage has gone very deep. Marvel keeps producing content that gets progressively worse and still commands audiences, because the emotional hook was set in childhood and the algorithm does the rest.